Guys, we're here. We're finally done. I've moved in. It's been torture. Moving has been torture. Moving in New York has been torture. Moving in New York during the highest rental prices in modern history and into a nearly decrepit apartment with like mold and a roach infestation and like so much more. Like, I don't even think I can tell you about some of the things because it legitimately might get this video demonetized. That was torture. But alas, here we are in the new studio, and if I might say so myself, it's nice in here. Very cozy. From renovation to Ricky's new studio. I was supposed to be an alliteration, but I even wrote it in the script, do an alliteration, but I kind of failed. So here's some lovely pictures of what the building looked like before I moved in. And actually for the first week of me living here. This is the second time in the channel's history that I have lived on a construction site doing audio. I got a whole new system that I want to share with you because it's actually quite a bit different. I got a whole new routing system, new audio interface, a bunch of new gear. So let's go through it, starting with the audio interface. I don't have the Scarlett 18i20 as my main rig anymore. We're actually using that for the bigger studio in the living room, which I will show you when it's done. So I'm using Audient. I'm using an Audient system. And the reason I say system is because I'm actually using two different interfaces paired together. I'm using the Audient ID4 as the main interface and then the Audient Evo 4 as kind of the secondary interface. But the reason I say paired together, this might blow some of your guys' minds. You can actually go into your computer and link two different audio interfaces and label them as a new thing, and your computer will recognize it as one single audio interface. Also, really quick, one of the most common questions I get emailed to me or asked to me on Instagram is, how in the world do you make Zoom audio sound good or even decent? And the honest to God answer is you're fighting an uphill battle from the beginning. The compression algorithms that Zoom uses is really brutal on audio specifically, and obviously, as we know from all the Zoom meetings, pretty bad for video too. Which is why when Riverside reached out for a collaboration, I was so happy because I finally have an answer to people trying to get good audio on their remote projects. If you haven't figured it out yet, this is a sponsored section. Riverside is the answer for recording your remote projects in a very high quality fashion, both in terms of video and audio. That means you get full HD and even 4K footage on video, and you get up to 48 kilohertz wave files for your audio for any production you do on Riverside. I use Riverside. I know a bunch of other creators that use Riverside. Even huge corporations like Spotify and the New York Times use Riverside. So both participants' side of the conversations are uploaded independently to the cloud. This means you're getting great audio not only from your side, but also from the other user. This is also great because you can literally just send them an invite as if this is any other chat program like Google Chats or something like that. There's no need to download a software onto your device. All of this will also easily export and download onto your computer, which means you can drag these things into Adobe Premiere, Final Cut Pro, or in terms of DAWs, you could drag them into Ableton, Pro Tools, Reaper, whatever you happen to be using. So for those of you struggling to get healthy remote productions at a high quality, you know my answer from now on. And you can also use code AudioHaze to get 15% off any of the payment plans. Check out Riverside in the link down below. They are absolutely killing it. Okay, so the ID4, as mentioned, has been the preamp you've heard on every single video I've recorded in the new studio. The Audient ID4 has 2 inputs and 2 outputs. The Evo 4 has 2 inputs and 2 outputs, but together they make a 4-input interface. This allows me to run my synths through the Evo 4, my guitar and my vocals, voiceover, through the ID4, and I can theoretically do all of those things exactly at the same time. I will pretty often record my drum machine, my Korg MS-20, both pre-programmed with MIDI, and then play guitar all at the same time. And with this system, I can do that rather than plugging in a bunch of XLRs and overdubbing. Routed out of the ID4, we are still using the same KRK Rocket 5s. This time, no crappy foam pads that are weirdly expensive. and get really dirty, by the way. And if you have cats, they will rip them up. No, we have proper monitor stands that have cleaned up the desk so well, just much better for sound isolating. Now, some of you might have noticed a glaring weakness in that B-roll when it comes to the actual placement of the monitors. We will get to it, and I will also tell you what I did to compensate. First though, I want you to admire my cable management, because I did this for you. I spent some time, more time than I would like to admit, routing all of the audio, taping it to the desk, zip tying everything to the posts, and by taping I mean gaff tape. And the result is a clean underside of the desk that doesn't get in the way, and I want you to appreciate it.
Ignore that part. That's, don't worry about that. Ignore that. It's too big of a cable.
Also, whenever I was here in the construction site, I got really bored and I didn't know what to do, so I built a bunch of Lego Star Wars ships. Okay, so let's talk about microphones. This stand has been constantly out of frame, and I guess it still is out of frame, for basically the entire existence of the old studio. It held about 80% of the microphones I normally use, but in the current setup and the way that it's just a little bit under the other shelf, that's not possible, so I had to pick and choose the mics that stay out inside of the room. Side note, I understand I should probably keep these in a case in order to protect them, but I'm just a person that if I see something on the walls or within easy reach, I am much more likely to create with it. So I find having all this gear out in the open, even though it exposes it to dust, really important to my creative process. Anyways, this is kind of all the microphones that see the most action and a few that just admittedly look good on camera, like the MXL 990. The RE20 remains as the primary microphone that exists on the boom arm 95% of the time. The OC818 is the workhorse condenser microphone that gets used on essentially everything: electric guitar, acoustic guitar, voiceover, any vocals I produce, anything. The SM57 gets used for guitar cabs for the most part. The Roswell K67X gets used as a guitar cab mic and then also as a voiceover mic when I need a darker tone. LCT440 is used on acoustic guitar. Neat, King Bee, and Rode NT1 also on acoustic guitar for the most part. So let's talk about room acoustics and then we will talk about instruments. Long story short, this is simply a better environment to record in for a number of different reasons. It's a better sounding room. It has better monitor placement. It's essentially the best place I could put the monitors in this room. It's centered in the middle of the long side of the room, if that makes sense. So you're getting the least amount of reflections coming back at you. Also, there's about the same amount of stuff from my old apartment in this new place, which means I'm getting less reflections, because as we know from the room acoustics video, if you don't have room treatment, disorganization is your friend, because it'll break up those sound waves rather than hitting a parallel surface and reflecting off of each other and causing a bunch of resonance issues. So if you live with your parents and they're telling you to clean your room, tell them that you're keeping it dirty for your art. However, as some of you might have noticed, there's a big problem with these monitor placements, primarily because of the window behind the left monitor, but even more so because of the recessed window sill. This really affected the left monitor way more than the right one, but I noticed that it was actually much louder because it was getting this sort of acoustic resonance thing happening within it, and also much bassier. Highly reflective flat surfaces bouncing around behind the speaker were not helpful. So to accommodate for this, the left monitor actually has a different frequency response that I programmed into it as compared to the right one. It has a dip in the low end, and it is also reduced by negative 2.5 decibels. And that seemed to skew the stereo image more to the center. Okay, so let's talk about instruments, because I actually have less instruments than I did in the old apartment. I'm rocking only one acoustic guitar, one electric guitar, one bass, and then a Korg MS-20 that I've always had a little bit out of frame, and the Arturia Drum Brute Impact on drum duties. The guitar is a 1998 American Standard with Fender noiseless pickups as an upgrade. I have worn down that thing over the course of 5 or 6 years by this point. It's my favorite guitar by far. Fun fact, I actually saved up for that guitar for months, making layaway payments $50 to $100 at a time for, I think, nearly 4 months, because it was my favorite guitar I've ever played, period. It still is, actually. And that's the reason it's the only electric guitar still in the new apartment, even though I have like 14. Taylor 214 CE as the acoustic. I got my first job in order to buy that guitar. Worked as a lifeguard for 3 months, making minimum wage, and bought that at the end of the summer. I was 15, so I've had the guitar 10 years. Wow. Sterling by Music Man Stingray, the cheap one, does its job just fine. And then for the guitar amp, I have an entirely new pedal board that has a Wampler Tumnus on it. For mild overdrive, for the guitar nerds out there, that's a Klon clone. And that's paired with a Zvex Box of Rock. Pair those two things together, you get some wild, crazy saturation, very Eric Johnson kind of tones. Boss DD8 doing delay, and a Digitech whammy for all the crazy noises at the beginning. And that is all then going into a Fender Deluxe Reverb Tone Master. Again, for the guitar nerds out there, that is the solid state version, which to me sounds exactly the same. I cannot tell any difference. I much prefer this. It's much lighter. And I also don't have to worry about replacing fragile tubes if they break. All right, folks, that's the new studio. You guys have no idea how hard it was to set up video in that old apartment. This, I just sit down, I turn on my light right here, turn on the new camera, and I start going. It's much easier, much cozier, and it really inspires me to create a lot of new fun stuff. So with that, I hope you enjoyed the video. You got a little bit of a vicarious gear rush from it. Go check out Riverside in the description down below. You can follow me on Instagram at RealAudioHaze. Need to post on there more. And you can work on a project with me by emailing me at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. Adios.